Welcome into another video, and this is a round that I kind of like. Some of these guys here in the fourth round, we're going over some guys that could be fantasy relevant for you for fantasy football based on the fourth round of the NFL draft. Without further ado, let's get right into the video. First guy I want to talk about here is Ja'Tavion Sanders, that tight end out of Texas, going over there to the Carolina Panthers, and they're kind of rebuilding this team around Bryce Young. They're getting him some more weapons, and I think that Tommy Tremble right now is probably the tight end one there, but Ja'Tavion Sanders, that 6'4" tight end, could end up taking over out of that. Let's just see what he did out of Texas. Like I said, he was a 6'4" tight end, 243 pounds, 45 receptions, 682 yards receiving, and 2 touchdowns on top of that. Ja'Tavion Sanders could be fantasy relevant. He could end up getting to the point to where he is starting for you week in and week out, depending on how Bryce Young ends up treating this tight end position. This is normally a safety blanket position for a young quarterback. Bryce Young was kind of hyper targeting somebody like an Adam Thielen last year. Now he's got somebody like Xavier Legette there, and now he's got somebody like Ja'Tavion Sanders. He was a highly touted tight end, probably the second tight end on my board, right behind Brock Bowers. I think he can make some things happen for the Panthers. Let's just look at the depth chart. Like I was talking about earlier, Bryce Young was the quarterback there. Jonathan Brooks at that running back position with Chuba Hubbard there. Deontay Johnson, the wide receiver they got over there out of the Steelers. Xavier Legette, I mentioned a little bit earlier with Jonathan Mingo. And then, like I said, Tommy Tremble I have right now, as of right now, as the starting tight end. And then Ja'Tavion Sanders is shortly after that. Like I said, he could be fantasy relevant. It just depends on how Bryce Young wants to use his tight end position. And if Ja'Tavion Sanders can learn enough and be better on the blocking side to pass up Tommy Tremble for more opportunities on the field. As of right now, I think Tommy Tremble is definitely the better blocking tight end than Ja'Tavion Sanders. Sanders more of maybe like a slot type of tight end. Maybe can get into the passing game a little bit through that route, but we'll just have to wait and see. The next guy I want to talk about here is from the Denver Broncos. They got Boy Nix's friend. It is going to be Troy Franklin, that wide receiver out of Oregon, somebody who played with Bo Nix in college, and I do believe they got to the point where, okay, we're now in the fourth round. We need to look and see, who does Bo Nix really want to throw the football to? Yeah, we do have Cortland Sutton. He's getting a little bit long on the tooth. We got rid of Jerry Jeudy. We do have Marvin Mims here as well. But should we get him another option in Troy Franklin? Troy Franklin is one of my favorite wide receivers in this entire draft, and he ended up falling into the fourth round. I thought for sure he was going to be maybe a second round wide receiver at latest, right? There are a lot of mocks that I did early on. You saw Troy Franklin in my first round, and he didn't. He dropped all the way to the fourth. He's a talented wide receiver. He's probably a little bit skinnier than what most people like, but he just dropped a little bit for whatever reason. He's still uber talented. Look at what he did last year at Oregon. You got Troy Franklin. He's a 6'3", 187-pound wide receiver, 81 receptions, 1,383 receiving yards with 14 touchdowns on top of that. He could make some noise for himself. Yes, I think Cortland Sutton will be the bona fide number one guy right here. But if Bo Nix really wants to, super target on his guys and say, hey, look, Troy Franklin, he deserves to be the number one guy. You never know. He might just say, Cortland Sutton, go ahead and sit aside. I'm gonna do my rock my boy Troy Franklin over and get the most fantasy points out of him. I'm curious to see what he can do. You could probably get Troy Franklin out of the steal as of right now in fantasy drafts, in rookie drafts. I say take this guy and see what he can do in year one. Let's look at the depth chart here real quick. We look at Bo Nix. I got him slotted as the number one quarterback. I think he's going to easily be able to beat Zach Wilson out for that job. Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine there at the running back position. Audrey estimated that running back out of Notre Dame. They ended up getting in the draft as well. Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, Josh Reynolds, Tim Patrick out all above Troy Franklin as of right now. But I think the talent will prevail for Troy Franklin to be able to climb up this depth chart. And then we have Greg Dulcich at the tight end position. So something that you just want to monitor. I think even in redraft leagues, Troy Franklin could be viable between mid to late of the season, and you can probably get him at a steal value. You never, especially if you're like a keeper league or whatever, you can get him towards the end of your drafts and have a nice steal in Troy Franklin. I'm excited to see what he can do with the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix. Next guy I want to talk about here is another tight end here from the New York Giants. It's going to be Theo Johnson out of Penn State, another tight end that I like. He was kind of up there into my rankings as well. Theo Johnson can do a little bit of everything for you, right? Let's just look at what he did last year for Penn State. Theo Johnson ended up with, he's a 6'6" tight end, had 34 receptions, 341 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns on top of that. I think he just wasn't utilized the way that I think he can. I think he's got good hands. He's got soft hands. He probably need to work a little bit better on his route running, but he can get the job done. And who knows what's going to happen with Darren Waller? Does he end up staying for one more season, ends up retiring? He's kind of flirting with the retirement type of issues early on. I just want to see what they end up with, right? Let's just look at the depth chart, see where they are as of right now. Look at it here, Daniel Jones, Drew Lock at the quarterback positions here. Devin Singletary, Gary Brightwell, Tyrone Tracy, a running back that I do like in this draft. Malik Neighbors, the highly touted wide receiver out of LSU, should be the #1 wide receiver here with Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson. As of right now, Darren Waller, Daniel Bellinger as the 2 tight ends in this offense. Theo Johnson, I don't currently have him in the top 2 of the tight ends. I think just as long as he can show some things, he should be able to climb up this depth chart. And when Darren Waller retires, he should be able to pass Bellinger, as he wasn't able to really produce when he was given the nod. Daniel Bellinger didn't really put up the numbers that we thought he could do. So let's move on to the next guy. One of the best wide receivers that I'm excited for in this entire NFL draft is with the New England Patriots. They're taking Javon Baker, the wide receiver out of UCF. We have to remember Javon Baker started in Alabama, and he ended up not doing very well at Alabama. Kind of was a second fiddle, behind people like Devonta Smith and such. So moves over to UCF, and he becomes the man for this entire offense, right? So he's a spectacular highlight catching kind of guy, deep down the field, go up there and high point the football, catch the football, come down with it. I like what I see from Javon Baker. Let's just see what he did at UCF last season. Javon Baker, 6'1", 208-pound wide receiver, 52 receptions, 1,139 yards, and 7 touchdowns on top of that. He can do a little bit of everything, right? And I think he can even pass up Jalen Polk, right, for that #1 wide receiver if he comes in and does what I think he can do. Should be an absolute steal. I would rather draft Javon Baker later on in the draft than taking Jalen Polk earlier in the draft, where these ADPs are sitting currently right now. I really enjoy watching Javon Baker. I think he's one of my favorite wide receivers out of this entire draft class, guys. So let's go over to the next guy here as far as the depth chart goes, and see who's going to be next in the pecking order in this wide receiver position. We look at Drake May there at the quarterback position, Ramondre Stevenson at the running back position, Jalen Polk, and these are the next guys I was talking about. Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, the other LSU wide receiver, and then Juju Smith-Schuster, kind of like the forgotten guy right there, and Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper. So if we just put it all in a nutshell, Javon Baker, somebody that I wouldn't be mad if you end up taking a flyer on this guy. You never know, you could have some fireworks, and possibly the #1 wide receiver for Drake May. There is a connection there, right? Javon Baker and Drake May were at the University of Alabama at one point. They were there and recruited there. They ended up not going and playing there. Drake May ended up going to the University of North Carolina, and then we ended up seeing the transfer to UCF for Javon Baker. I love this guy. I think he is absolutely phenomenal. Next guy here on the list, I want you guys to kind of stay away from a little bit. It's Eric All, the tight end. So that the Bengals took, I just don't see an opportunity for them to really be using anything for Eric All. Let me just kind of show you what the depth chart looks like right now. Joe Burrow at the quarterback position, Zach Moss at this running back position, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Trent Irwin, and Jermaine Burton, right? The wide receiver out of Alabama there as well. I do have Mike Gesicki and Drew Sample ahead of right now. But Eric All, if you're kind of looking at what he's providing for a fantasy-wise, there's really nothing there. He's more of a blocking tight end, and I think that's why they got him. I think it raises Zach Moss's value, if anything. I just don't think he's going to be a good fantasy value of fantasy asset. I know there's a 4th round draft capital here, but I would stay away from Eric All as far as fantasy football goes. So next guy we're going to talk about here is from the Miami Dolphins. Going to be Jalen Wright from the University of Tennessee. A very speedster type running back, and man, they are really stacking up the speed there in Miami. I'm telling you. So they got everybody, whether it's Devon Achane and Tyreek Hill, they're just getting all the fast guys. And Jalen Wright I'm telling you guys right now, he is fast. The dude is absolutely light. Let's look at what he did last season. He's a 5'11" running back, 210 pounds, 1,013 yards, rushing with 4 touchdowns, had 141 receiving yards with 0 touchdowns. He can make some things happen. I think he's going to end up taking over for Raheem Mostert and be kind of the 1A back ahead of Achane. So I think when Mostert, he ends up retiring, this could be his last season. Who knows? I don't think, Achane's going to be able to take over that #1A role. He just doesn't have the body type for that. Jalen Wright does. So I think he's going to end up leapfrogging Devon Achane and being the guy for this offense. Might be a little bit of hot take here. Let's just go to the depth chart and see what I'm talking about. We see here at the quarterback position, Tua Tagovailoa there, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, Jalen Wright. I have slotted right now as that #3 running back. But like I said, once Raheem Mostert goes away, I think Jalen Wright will be the #1. Devon Achane stays in that change of pace type of role. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Odell Beckham Jr. recently signed to the Dolphins. Jonnu Smith at the tight end position. They are loading up for the Broncos. They are doing things all over the field. I'm excited to see what they can put it together. Tua Tagovailoa is going to have to kind of narrate this entire story, right? He needs to make sure he's getting the ball to all of his playmakers, and they can make some noise in the playoffs. I'm excited to see what we can do. Jalen Wright, more of a dynasty pick for me and not necessarily a redraft. So Next guy we're gonna go over here is gonna be from the Houston Texans. It's gonna be Cade Stover, and I'm liking this tight end, right? They did end up re-signing Dalton Schultz, but I think Cade Stover a nice tight end complement for Dalton Schultz to kind of learn the ropes and eventually take over that 1A type of tight end role eventually from Dalton Schultz when he's ready to move on. Cade Stover out of the University of Ohio State has shown some flashes. He's shown some ability to catch the football and to do some things, and a decent blocker as that. Let's just look at what he did last season at Ohio State. Look at Cade Stover. 6'4", 251 pounds, 41 receptions, 576 yards, and 5 touchdowns on top of that. So he has an opportunity, right? CJ Stroud has shown that he can produce with multiple weapons out there. So if he can continue to learn and continue to develop and be the #1 tight end eventually once Dalton Schultz ends up going away, more of a dynasty pick than really a redraft pick because you're looking into the future. Dalton Schultz is clearly the 1A tight end. Cade Stover isn't going to push that. Let's just look at the depth chart and see kind of what's going on. We see CJ Stroud at that quarterback position. Joe Mixon, the new running back that they got in town, along with Damian Pierce as well. Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell. Man, they are absolutely loaded. Dalton Schultz. And then we see Cade Stover sitting there at the tight end position. Like I said, if you're in a redraft league, you don't want to target Cade Stover whatsoever. I don't think he's going to be fantasy relevant at all this season or even next season. We're looking maybe like a 3-year down the line, seeing what Cade Stover can actually do fantasy football wise. So let's look at the next guy here. We're going to talk about Ray Davis, the running back out of Kentucky, ended up going over there to the Buffalo Bills and kind of backing up James Cook just a little bit. So Ray Davis, somebody that I do enjoy watching a lot of his film. I thought he was actually going to be drafted maybe in, round 3 or so like that, but he ends up falling to the 4th round, going to a decent opportunity there at the Bills. They needed somebody behind James Cook. James Cook he proved that he could be the #1 type of running back there, but I like that they have a little bit of job security. People like Leonard Fournette and Latavius Murray, all these guys are going to go to the wayside. Now it's going to be Ray Davis. He's going to be the second running back behind there. They got rid of all their wide receivers, ended up getting Keon Coleman there at the wide receiver position, but they might be doing a little bit more of a running style, and that could benefit Ray Davis and James Cook as well. Let's look at what he did at the University of Kentucky. 5'10", 216 pounds, 1,129 yards rushing, 14 touchdowns along, 323 yards receiving, and 7 touchdowns on top of that. Somebody that you can see, I don't know necessarily going to be fantasy relevant this year or next year. More of just a handcuff ability. If you have James Cook, I think it'd be worth to go grab Ray Davis. I don't think he has any opportunity or any chance to take over James Cook as of right now from what I'm looking at. Let's just look at the depth chart, kind of go over that as well. We have Josh Allen at that quarterback position, James Cook, Ray Davis at the running back, Keon Coleman, like I mentioned earlier, at the wide receiver position with Khalil Shaker and Curtis Samuel, and then Dalton Kincaid definitely at that tight end position. But overall, I think Ray Davis can give you some nice stats sometimes if James Cook is looking to maybe miss a week or so. Other than that, I think he's just a pure handcuff, not somebody that I would target in Dynasty or a redraft. Again, just a handcuff option. Last but not least, a tight end that I really do like that the Chiefs picked up, Jared Walley, the tight end out of TCU. This is somebody that I really enjoy watching. He's probably my favorite tight end in this entire draft, over Brock Bowers, over Jatavian Sanders, over Ben Sinnott, over all of these guys. I like Jared Walley and what he can do. And he goes to a great situation. He gets to learn behind Travis Kelce and maybe even overtake Travis Kelce's job when he retires. Yes, they do have Noah Gray there as well, but Jared Walley is a athletic freak of nature. I'm watching this guy play, and he can play some football. And I think that the big body, 6'7" type of tight end can make some things happen. Excited. Let's just look at what he did last year at TCU. Like I mentioned, 6'7" tight end, 260 pounds, 47 receptions, 520 receiving yards, and 8 touchdowns on top of that. If Patrick Mahomes can find himself a nice big body target in Jared Walley, I'm telling you, this could be some fireworks and somebody you can get frankly free in your drafts and all these rookie drafts if you're playing in Dynasty football. By any means, he is not a redraft player for the next couple of years, but I think if you're in a Dynasty league or in you're in your rookie draft or your startup draft, go grab Jared Walley. He's going to be a nice nugget in one of the last rounds of your draft. Go ahead and pick this guy up for absolutely free, because if he ends up being the starting tight end for Patrick Mahomes without a Travis Kelce there, you could be looking at something phenomenal. Let's look at the depth chart here for the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes at that quarterback position, Isaiah Pacheco, Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the running back position, Rashid Rice, who knows what's going to happen with him, could be in legal trouble, Marquise Brown, Xavier Worthy, the rookie out of Texas. Travis Kelce, and I also have Noah Gray ahead of him as of right now. But like I was saying, if Jared Wiley can find himself on this offense, start creeping up, going ahead and jumping Noah Gray, and then eventually taking over for Travis Kelce once he retires, that could be fire. So guys, hit the subscribe button, really helps me out, and leave a comment down below. What do you guys think? Who is your favorite 4th round player that was taken that you may be targeted in your drafts? Make sure you hit a like button on this video. And guys, we're popping out videos each and every week to help you dominate your league. I can't wait to see you guys on the next video. We'll see you guys next time.